Starting this afternoon, the principals led by NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga will hold a rally at Joseph Kang'ethe grounds and later on another rally at the Masinde Muliro grounds in Mathare. Let's cross over now to Orange House, where the NASA core principals are addressing the press.
Aids them to promote the interests of any political party or cause. The security forces cannot be used to militarize our democratic, civil and political culture that Kenyans won with so much sacrifice, which has been thriving since 2002. For avoidance of doubt, let me reiterate that NASA is deeply proud of our military. The Kenya Defense Forces remain one of the finest in the world. We know that KDF remains committed to its proud tradition of professionalism, but Jubilee is desperate. A failed regime will do anything, including pulling down a highly reputable institution like KDF. One aspect of this failed regime is the huge role that has been inflicted on Kenyans by the growing insecurity that's been allowed to stalk our land. But it would be sheer madness to descend to yet another level of chaos to satisfy the political and financial greed of the small Jubilee elite. This fabulously wealthy group has become used in the last 4 years to loot the public purse at will, even as the vast majority of our families are no longer able to meet their essential food and other needs. This has never happened for such a prolonged period in our history. At the same time, more and more Kenyans are seeing the NASA coalition broadening its appeal and providing a much-needed and vastly credible alternative to the utter dysfunction and deprivation that Jubilee has presided over for 4 years. NASA stands ready to govern. This is what has sent Jubilee into a panic and make it hatch these destructive scenarios. It is willing to destroy our peace to cling to power and its ill-gotten gains. We want to assure Kenyans that we are not making these distress revelations lightly. What is going on has never happened in our country before. The government is breaking all bounds of constitutionality, and an election is being replaced by a rolling coup d'etat. We must do everything in our power to stop it peacefully. Even as we mobilize opinion and the power of exposure to prevent this catastrophe, we simultaneously want to reassure everyone that we are taking every possible step to prevent these plans from coming to fruition. In the last 3 days, we have met and alerted the African Union, the European Union, and the other electoral observer missions, as well as the European Union ambassadors, about these plans. We have also provided detailed information of these plans to the Chief of the General Staff of KDF, Joseph Boynet, the Inspector General of the Police Service, Director General NIS, the Attorney General, and Mr. Wafula Chebukati, the IEBC Chairman. We have also alerted all human rights and governance NGOs. We are confident that we will all be alarmed and will take steps We are confident that they will all be alarmed and will take steps in their own ways and jurisdictions to help scuttle these evil plans. The audacity of these plans can be gauged by the fact that for months now, the Jubilee government has been openly indicating that all the so-called election hotspots are primarily in NASA strongholds. Astounding as it might seem, the government has not identified any hotspots in the Jubilee strongholds. The reason is all too clear. Jubilee has no intention to give Kenyans a chance to express their will in the great democratic moment that people have been waiting for and is now imminent. Jubilee cannot lose. It has stacked the deck and knows there will be no unhappy people in its strongholds. Jubilee has ensured that trouble will only erupt in NASA strongholds. There are a number of other plans afoot to arrive at a distorted electoral outcome. Our presidential candidate is being shadowed by cars whose registrations are in our possession. We also have documents which we released 3 days ago, which show that a team of 42 police officers has been demobilized, in quotes, and will be recruited as IEBC presiding officers and polling clerks. Kenyans will remember a similar exercise that was undertaken prior to 2013 elections to corrupt the electoral outcome. Nairobi will also see a very high degree of militarization, with all major roads heavily patrolled by army units designed to intimidate a population that has very little familiarity with such display of crude and brute force. Let me once again assure Kenyans that we are confident that these plots will not see the light of day, and now that we have exposed them widely, they will freeze. In addition, given there are tens of thousands of polling stations, it will take a lot more soldiers than KDF can deploy for a decisive impact on the elections. The country has had its fill of plunder and deprivation. People everywhere are suffering the pangs of hunger, and virtually everything they need is becoming unaffordable. Everyone except the super rich is fed up, including those in the Jubilee strongholds who voted for them in 2013. Everyone wants change. NASA stands ready to govern as soon as all of you give us the democratic mandate on 8th of August this year. We urge all Kenyans to show up on polling day with their own show of force, a force of peace and democracy, loving voters 19 million strong, determined to peacefully elect leaders to chart a much better future for our country. And we want to tell Kenyans that the power of the people is stronger than the people in power. And we have no doubt that the power of the people will be manifested on the 8th of August this year. Thank you. It's as clear as it is. Any questions? I'll answer the first one and leave the candidate to answer the second one. The acting interior minister is actually part of the problem. He is guilty of making unsubstantiated and unhelpful and perhaps reckless remarks. Nowhere in the Constitution is there a role for the interior minister to supervise or conduct elections in this country. The statements he's making can only be made from IEBC. And there is no law that precludes Kenyans peacefully gathering around polling stations and helping Kenyans to cast their votes as and when it is necessary. We are simply acting within the law, and we caution Minister Matiang'i that he should concentrate on making sure that Kenyans are secure, their properties are protected, and they'll go to vote without interference, without hindrance, and without intimidation. Part of his statements is what we're talking about, intimidation prior to elections. The debate? We, as a coalition, have a position on the debate, and we'll cross that bridge when we reach it. And of course, you've heard repeatedly our worthy competitors alleging from rooftops that we are not ready for elections. We want to assure Kenyans that we have never been this ready for the elections. We are ready. We are waiting for the D-Day. But being ready does not mean we throw caution to the wind. We must be conscious and say it as it is every time we see some underhand activities going on that can undermine the electoral process. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
All right, so that there is a press conference by NASA co-principals there at the Orange House ahead of their rallies in Nairobi City later today. Speaking now was Moses Wetangula, who has addressed several issues there that have come to the fore in the past week. And of course, NASA has been crying foul, claiming that the Jubilee government is planning to militarize NASA strongholds to suppress voters from voting come the 8th of August. Well, they are now reassuring their supporters that they are taking every possible step to prevent this from happening. Although, remember, these are still claims from the opposition. They have also accused Jubilee of mapping out election hotspots only in NASA strongholds in a bid to scuttle the election. And of course, more details of that press conference there coming up later on. We've had Moses Wetangula also pointing fingers at acting Interior CS Fred Matiang'i there, accusing him of making reckless remarks by rubbishing NASA's adopt a polling station strategy. Well, it is now 27 minutes past the hour. You are watching a Weekend at 1. At this point, we'd like to